Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Sparxie Defense Force coming in. I don't even know if I'm gonna pull this character, but I'm like so supremely confident at this point of her future meta value and her future team that I must spread the word. I must spread the agenda. Right. So, for those who don't know, when we first got like the first beta of Sparxie, my immediate assumption was sub DPS, okay? Because she had buffing in her Lycone, buffing in her E1, and buffing in her base kit, right? Now, you may ask, why exactly does this mean that a character would be a sub DPS? Isn't she like super strong as a main DPS? Well, if we were to look for another character that Hoyo or HSR has previously released, with investment into Lycone, investment into Eidolons that buff the team, and on top of this, as well as a base kit with crit damage buffing that buffs the team, and can be ran as a main DPS super strong, who could that possibly be, right? Actually, it was like 2 patches ago, right? So it's Evernight. Evernight has this exact same blueprint of a kit that is basically copy pasted onto Sparxie, however translated for Elation, because a lot of people argue, right, Evernight has 2 buffs, and this is why Sparxie will be a main DPS because she only has 1, being her crit damage. However, this isn't true. If you actually paid attention to Sparxie's kit, she gives another buff, and this is Punchline Generation. What is Punchline? Punchline is something that Sparxie can generate, I believe, both on her ult and when she uses her skill, consuming a ton of skill points. If you get the good skill that like gives 2 SP back, that'll generate 2 Punchline, and then normal skill point consumption will just be 1, right? Punchline is taken into account whenever allies on the team do elation damage and massively buffs it, okay? Now, massively may be an overstatement because most people can't generate a significant amount of Punchline except for Sparxie, right? So it isn't a, oh, she only has crit damage buffing in base kit. There's no way you can say that there would be synergy with a future Elation team. No, the Punchline generation and it buffing the entire team's Elation damage is the second buff equivalent to Evernight's vulnerability for the Mono Remembrance team, right? And so, now that we've gotten all this aside, the last cope to doom Sparxie's value is that her skill point consumption is too great. Now, I don't even get what this argument is, because we've already been proven it before. Hoyo will go out of their way to make a full mono best in slot team feel incredibly well lubed, well run. They'll make up for it by giving everybody else SP positivity on the team, right? But even if we assume the team isn't incredibly SP positive, they actually don't need to be, right? Why is it that I say this? Well, in a mono Elation team, Aha Instant actually becomes faster, right? I believe it caps out at 3 Elation characters on the team, but he becomes significantly faster, meaning he takes more actions. Why does this matter? This matters because Yao Guang's Elation skill actually generates a skill point. And on top of this, even with her own ult outside of Aha Instant going himself, she can also instantly trigger an Aha Instant with her ult, generating another skill point, right? So Yao Guang is already incredibly SP positive. And when it comes to Sparxie, the max amount of skill points that she needs to use to feel clean on the team is 4. And I believe it's only once because of her Lycone. Her Lycone makes it so that when she consumes 4 skill points in a single turn, she will buff all allies' Elation damage by 20%. And when I checked to see if there was a duration on this, there wasn't. So it seems like it's a buff that lasts the entirety of the battle, even if you don't use 4 skill points on her ever again, right? Now, I will say, once again, it's very likely Hoyo creates this mono Elation team for Sparxie that is incredibly SP positive so that she can consume a copious amount of skill points to do a lot of punchline generation, further buffing the team. However, my point in bringing this up is simply that even if this weren't the case, she'd still fit, she'd still work, and all her buffs would still benefit the Elation teams massively. Even if she isn't this huge support character like some of you may think that she's mainly a sub DPS, just being Elation in of itself, making Aha instant trigger more, making everybody on the team do significantly more damage, has value, and people are kinda ignoring that, right? So when it comes down to whether or not she's going to be a sub DPS, I'm going to be honest, all signs point towards yes. She will have this main DPS team where she can use buff Sparkle and probably Yao Guang and another Elation sustain. That's probably going to be her best in slot DPS team. Her actual best in slot team in the future will likely be Mono Elation as a sub DPS. And this would be absolutely awesome, and I think it's more cope, if anything, to say that she'd be stuck to only a main DPS team, end up in a Glea situation all over again, because that would be disappointing, right? On top of this, if you look at Yae Sakura, right, in her coming out in 4.2, and you look at the trend of HSR rerunning characters pretty quickly within about 3 patches, Sparxie and Yao Guang being 4.0 lines up perfectly with Hoyo's greedy rerun practices. This means that after 4.2 in 4.3, they'd be able to do a Sparxie Yao Guang rerun, who are very, very likely, in my opinion, to end up both being the best in slot sub DPS and the best in slot third slot for Yae Sakura. So it even lines up perfectly for Hoyo's reruns to milk as much money from the player as possible. So that's all I have for you guys today. I'm not going to try and convince you any further, right? It's unlikely that she'll get any significant buffs or just changes in general going into the future versions now that we've gotten into V3. I just wanted to spread the word, spread the agenda. I do think like 98+% chance she has 2 different teams, 2 different roles, and she will be a sub DPS for a Mono Elation team. Even if it isn't Yae's, which I think it is incredibly likely it is, it'll be one of them, right? Love you all. Hope you have a great day. Hope you have a great night. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Remember, if you disagree with me, you're wrong. Peace out. So I realized I'm like 10 seconds off of hitting the 8-minute mark, so I'm gonna pull a fast one on you guys, and I mean, there's not really any important information here. I just want to hit the 8-minute mark for more ads, and yep, peace out.